This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the thing, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 93. Tonight, I am joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Dallian.
Hello.
Grace.
Heya.
Kodra.
Hi.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hi there.
And this is the second part of our 2015 Games of the Year show. Tales of Zestiria. Tam.
So I've had kind of a rough year. And Ash bought me this game while I was depressed. And it was really, in addition to being exactly the game that I needed without knowing it, I found it really interesting. I am very picky about JRPGs. I occasionally go off on a tangent about them, which I'll curtail here, as I've already done that. But they're really, really, really hit or miss for me. Because I tend to be able to predict the stories, at least until they jump off the rails in the third act and go nuts. And even that I find kind of predictable. But the Tales of Zestiria, I don't want to spoil a bit of the intro because it's within the first hour of the game. But you're presented with two characters. One of them is the taller, more muscular, obvious main character, kind of happy-go-lucky. The other is the slighter, more elfin, cynical best friend. And they always sort of bicker. And it's not barbed, but you can see how it could become barbed really fast, given the right impetus. And I remember making the joke with Ash in the first 30 seconds of the game, well, I know who's going to turn evil. Oh, what an obvious tell. This is the best friendo character who is going to turn evil, and we're going to have to fight him, and it's going to be super sad, and I see where this is going. But it's charming, so let's see. And then you basically start in a dungeon, and you meet your third character, and you meet the third character of the game, and it throws a ridiculous curveball at you, because the third character you meet can't see your best friend at all. And it shows you this by she's talking to you as the protagonist. The best friend character is standing looking sullen in the background. And then at one point he steps up right 2 inches from her face and goes boo and jumps and tries to jump scare her, and she doesn't react at all. And you have a moment where you think, oh well, she's just totally unflappable. And then it becomes obvious that she can't see him. And it's wait, what? And the game takes this stark turn from that point where it becomes a game about religion without actually referencing religion. And I think that's really interesting because your best friend and all of the people you grew up with as the protagonist, who you can go and visit and talk to, they don't do the explode your home village thing as JRPGs so often do. Another departure from trope. You can go back and say hi, and they're happy to see you. But they're all these spirits with magic powers that people everywhere else in the world pray to, and they're your buddies. There's in one of the very first places you go, there's the whole sword and the stone thing, and they say the person who can draw the sword from the stone is the next prophet of whatever, the prophesied one. And but nobody can do it. It's a legend. But we have this festival every year where people can try, haha, and then we all have a feast. It's hilarious. It's the usual. And as you roll up to it, there's another one of those spirits there, and basically you're hey, can I take that sword? And she's oh, you can see me? Yeah, sure. And so you just take it, and of course the whole town goes nuts because some guy just took the prophesied sword. He's obviously the one of legend. You're I just asked for it. And the game takes this really interesting thing, because the other part of it is you're talking to your friends, these spirits, that nobody else can see. So everybody thinks that you're talking to yourself. If you don't talk to them in private, people think that you're just nuts. And so you've got to deal with this your reputation getting ahead of you of being this like crazy person who talks to themselves. And people think that you're this false prophet because they can't see any, other than the fact that you took this sword and who knows what that was all about. They can't see evidence that you're some crazy, powerful thing. And most of what you do, they can't see anyway because it masks itself. So you're going around fighting stuff with help that nobody can see, fighting things that nobody else can see that look like weird, natural events. You fight this crazy demon, this water demon, and people, the way that other people describe it who aren't you is very different from what you actually play. And so this is really, for me, it's this really interesting duality. And I wound up I haven't finished it, but it's a game that I find really interesting just because it does something different. It tells an interesting story in a different way.
And this is pretty much available on all platforms, right?
Pretty much.
PC and PS4, and I think PS3 too.
Yeah, it's on my watch list, but I'm kind of waiting on it to go down in price.
This is also on my watch list. I don't even know why I haven't started picking it up yet. It sounds like a game I would really like, again, because I like games about religion.
I think mostly it's a situation where I've been waiting for a lapse where I don't have other things that I really want to be playing before digging into it, because that's the only way I tend to finish these games is if I have no other distractions at the same time. So it means it's like a lapse in the MMO patch schedule, or I'm just feeling down on everything else I've been playing, because otherwise activity and doing things will always end up pulling me away from the solitary experience. Okay, so next on the list is Witcher 3. This is a Dallian thing, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think there was another person who picked it, but I know I picked it. This was my number one pick, mainly just because over the last year I've started getting more into open world RPG games, and by far for me this was the best one of the year. I had never played, I played Witcher 2, but I didn't play very much of it. So this was my first real full-on Witcher game. I just really enjoyed what I really enjoyed is just being able to go, do whatever I wanted, crafting my own gear, just running around doing things, and not having to pay attention to the main story. So I was like what you did with Fallout 4, Bell. I was really high level before I got to certain areas in the story, and I was just destroying things. And I also had the same thing where I had in Fallout, where I had 1,000 pounds of carry weight when my carry capacity is 200 pounds, and I literally walked across the continent just because I didn't want to drop things. And this is one of the few games where I've ever considered doing New Game Plus on. And the only reason I didn't do it was because somewhere along the line, my save file got deleted.
Oh, that sucks. You played on the console, right?
Yes, I played it on the PS4. And I do have I can't remember. I think I have the season pass, but I have not played it yet because I have to start over from the beginning of the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of time in this game. I've only put in probably around 20 hours. I actually got this with my video card, so it isn't under Steam, which is the exception to what I'm normally playing. I would play more of this, but the big problem that I run into with a lot of these games, and I think it's the same reason why I haven't gotten terribly far in Dragon Age Inquisition, is traditionally when I'm upstairs on my gaming machine, I am playing with other people. When I'm downstairs, chilling on the couch on my laptop, that's when I tend to play single-player experiences. And my gaming laptop has finally aged to the state where there's this whole generation of titles that were designed for the modern consoles that don't play for crap on them. And I had this problem with Fallout 4 and Dragon Age Inquisition and Witcher 3, most definitely, just because I don't have the laptop hardware to run these things anymore. I'm running into this problem where there's this thing that I want to do for single player games, and that mode of operation isn't supported. And right now, remote playing it via Steam in-home streaming to a wireless device is kind of kludgy. It doesn't really work as intended. So, mostly the video gets artifacted to hell.
I would say I put in 150 hours on it. I did not do my normal crazy thing where I like to 100% games. I did not do that this time on this game. Not yet, anyway.
I think there's just too much stuff there to 100% it.
Well, I don't know. I hadn't looked at the trophy list, but I mean, if I can 100% Fallout 4, I can probably 100% Witcher 3.
I still think that's utter insanity that you 100%ed Fallout 4, but you were dedicated.
I really have nothing better to do. Other than that, like, so the story on the game is really like involved, and you get really into it. And there came a point where I had done everything in the game that I wanted to do, and just kind of burned through the story. But I had the same thing with Fallout 4, so it's nothing really like. I mean, it's just how I play the game.
So the big takeaway that I had in the little bit I played of it is, like, Geralt is this really cringeworthy character.
It really bugs me.
Yeah.
And so I was totally expecting to swallow down the fact that he is this misogynistic asshole, and instead I found out that for the most part you could kind of make him a better person. Like, you didn't have to be a horrible person when you played this game. Like,
yeah, you have through the dialogue options, you have whatever you can go that way or you don't go. But the whole story is really him trying to find his. And it's not his birth daughter, but he basically raised her. And so there's the whole, like, there's that whole, like, you don't have to do all the him hitting on every single woman he comes across thing. Though there is a trophy for it, which I got. But
I'm shaking my head.
See, for me, it's like, sure, the game lets you not do that, but the game so painfully, blatantly wants you to do it that it's a big turnoff for me.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that got me was a buddy of mine was playing a bunch of it and posts a screenshot, and he's like, okay, game, look. And it's a screenshot of a village, and it's like a village full of like bedraggled, sad-looking peasants, and then like one like voluptuous woman wearing makeup and like obviously more titillating clothes than the like potato sacks that everybody else is wearing. And he's like, which woman in this picture can you obviously flirt with? I just got here and I can tell you. And it's like, I think that stopped me from seeing like the good parts of the game. Because I know they exist. Like, tons of people have talked about like some of the best writing they've seen in a really long time.
One of the things I really thought was funny is not necessarily about the game, but the developer of the game. There was an exploit in one of the early towns where you could get a lot of cow skins and sell them for lots of money. And they put in a patch that if you sat there and you did this, whatever this exploit was, some impossibly high level thing would come out and just murder you. But then there's like, I don't know, there's so many distractions in the game, and one that I know, there's the card game.
And everybody talks about that. I hear it's amazing.
I didn't get into this. One thing I didn't do my first playthrough, because you can miss cards. Certain people go away based on choices you make, and if you don't play them and get their card before they go away, you can no longer get it. And me being the kind of person who I like to get all the trophies, that automatically means I have to go back and play it again anyway because I missed some certain things early in the game. Plus, I did not get the happy ending, so I want to play it again anyway. And that was the other thing, is there's 3 or 4 main endings, and then there's like even the side characters. There's this whole bit before you get the final cutscene. Every single kind of important side character gets an ending as well, based on the choices that you made.
I guess my thing is, like, I would feel better about playing this game if I got to play as Ciri.
You have it on the PC. There is a mod on the PC where you play the entire game as Ciri.
Which I'm sure would end up with a very confusing story, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not really the part of it that bugs me. Like, I can mod it away, but it doesn't change, like, the dialogue.
Yeah, I got to through the opening, like, cutscene, and I was like, okay, that's... Like, I kind of see... It was one of those things where I was like, I kind of see where this game is trying to go with this, but, like, as a married guy, I can kind of tell you, like, when somebody is getting ready for the day, it's not typically something super erotic. And the fact that they were trying to make that was like, okay, this is silly.
Like, I feel like the reason why I enjoyed it is mostly because I ignored the story and went around helping the poor disheveled townsfolk, killing this bad guy or cleansing this well or.
I mean, that's pretty much how I played it. I would take every single map when I loaded into it the first time. I would do every single thing that I possibly could at whatever level I was at. Because there are certain places, like there are certain creatures that, like I found a griffin at, like it was level 30 something griffin and I was level 5. There's no way you can kill it.
Or some of the drowner things that, like the high level ones that are guarding the ships that are underwater. And
I did try playing the game on I don't remember what the difficulties, like insane whatever the highest difficulty setting was, and you die a lot.
Yeah, I think that it's like, I mean, for the fact that both of you said I kind of enjoy this game but I ignore the story and it's an RPG, I'm like I'm done, like at that point.
But I said the same thing about Fallout 4.
Yeah, and it's like I get it, but I can't play that game.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's just interesting whether, for some people, there's things that are sort of distasteful, but there's enough else there that you can kind of keep playing and kind of make your own way. Whereas, I mean, I heard people talk about this game. I saw, some footage and listened to some other people talk about it and just went, nope. There's no world in which I will be able to set enough of this aside to enjoy the game as good as it might otherwise be.
One of the other things I thought about the game that I really like, the soundtrack to this game is amazing. I've really wanted to go out and just buy the soundtrack on a CD or MP3 or whatever, because the soundtrack is just amazing.
I have heard that the soundtrack is amazing. I've definitely heard that.
It definitely hands down like is one of the selling points on the game for me. Is if the music hadn't been as good as it had been, it probably would not have been as immersive to me. But having that like fluid music throughout the whole game like just really helped it.
It's been hilarious reading about Lior's adventures in this game as she tries to find boob witches to seduce. I don't know what boob witches are yet, but apparently it's a thing that she's trying to go seduce.
Well.
That was her term for all of the various female monsters in the game that, appear as half-naked women.
All I know is I had just gotten off work and checked Twitter, and she said something about boob witches, and okay, thanks, Lior. Okay, so the next one on the list is one I threw there, Destiny the Taken King. And we've had past experiences with Destiny as a group, not all of which were positive. And I really don't even know why I decided to patch the game up and give it another shot around the time The Taken King was released. And I guess for me, The Taken King has been this experience that is much like the Diablo 3 2.0 patch, where they just fixed a lot of the things that I didn't like about the game. They did a better job at balancing the weapons. The game is arguably more grindy now, but it feels less grindy. And I don't know how they did that, but
probably variation of activities.
Yeah, well, so it feels like you're always getting something, whereas previously you would go a long time between seeing drops. The problem is now the drops aren't always useful. But they fixed a lot of the problems. Like, it used to be a trope of the game that if you got a legendary Ingram, you're going to get a blue off of it. That they always almost downgraded from purple to blue whenever you decoded it at the encryption guy. But now they're always face value at least, and I've got a shocking number of exotics off of legendary Ingrams. And the big thing for me is like the exotic weapons feel really good and they feel very unique. So it's like you're using a fabled weapon that is important, and it brings back the feel that like raiding during Vanilla WoW used to, where you wanted this item because you had heard amazing things about it, and then when you get it, it completely changes your gameplay style around it because it feels different. So, for example, there's a weapon called the Jade Rabbit, and it is currently a PlayStation 4 exclusive, and it's a scout rifle. And it is this weird weapon that makes you... It basically gains damage if you score, I believe, a headshot first and then body shots, or the other way around, one of the two. But basically, you have to like change up the way you're playing. So normally you want everything to be a headshot, but because of this perk, you get your first headshot and then everything is a body shot because it's increasing damage. There's a lot of weapons that are that way, where it's the certain sequence of perks on the weapon change the way you're using it. So it's not just a normal auto rifle or a scout rifle or a pulse rifle. It does something different that makes you change the way you're using it. And to some extent, it reminds me of the way, say, Diablo sets work, where all of a sudden your abilities are completely different in context because of the items that you have equipped.
I will say I did buy this expansion, and I got through the story, and I tried really hard to enjoy it, and I couldn't do it. Cause I mean, it's just I play by myself, and to me the game as a whole has always been focused on doing the dungeons in a group or doing the PvP. And like when the game first came out, I did the PvP a lot, and I don't know, maybe I just don't enjoy the grinding as much, as other people do.
I guess for me, it's like, I hate to call back to the extra credits Law and Order video saying that Destiny is the Law and Order of video games, but it is to some extent. Like, it's that game that I can always drop into and spend an hour or so doing meaningless things and enjoy myself, because just the experience of shooting these guns is fun for me.
Well, I kind of feel like I've been watching a lot of videos on the Division recently, and I kind of feel like they're going to be about the same game, but I might like the Division more.
So my problem with the Division, I think, and I've thought about this at length, and is, so for the most part, everything that I've seen, and sadly I won't get to play Division because I'll be at Pax South, the games are very similar. Like, they're really similar. But where Division loses me is I have less interest in playing realistic weapons in a realistic post-apocalyptic setting than I do outer space people with futuristic guns.
I think I'm exactly the opposite. I kind of like the whole third-person cover shooter part of it. Anyway, we're talking about Destiny, but yeah, I mean, Destiny is not. I mean, I like Destiny. Like, it's a good shooter. I would probably like it better as a single player game.
The thing with Division, it's like, honestly, it's the same problem I've always had with getting into Call of Duty games. Is honestly, like, I don't care about realistic people with military missions and things like that could exist in the real world. I would far rather do something that can't exist, where I fight a dragon or a giant, demon thing that comes up out of the ground. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could go to a conflict zone around the world and be a guerrilla fighter of some sort. I can't go, kill the space demon god thing.
Yeah, I'm more with Bell on this. As far as those types of games go, I'm probably more interested in Destiny. Destiny burned me real hard when it came out, so I still haven't decided to go out and try out the Taken King, but I think I probably should.
If I could have, I would have gifted you a copy of the PlayStation Store doesn't do gifting, because I so wanted to gift you the addition to your Destiny game that unlocks Taken King. Because it's like all of the fun that we've been having with Warframe, that's been me over this year with Destiny. It's the exact same kind of experience.
I will say that the Taken King does improve on the Destiny base game.
I was theoretically also really into Destiny, and for me it's the opposite. Warframe provides everything that I wanted Destiny to give me. Like, I get a lot of variety in how I approach everything. like my approach to the game can change dramatically mission to mission, and like I find all of the weapons interesting. Whereas in Destiny, they felt like all really tight, really well built variants of this is a gun, what shoots bullets.
So once you get into the problem with Destiny is the leveling game is boring.
And that's what I've heard is that Destiny does get interesting, or like Taken King gets interesting once you're talking about like high-end legendary weapons with fancy everything. But like to get there.
So in the first game, getting legendaries was hard. Like it was a difficult thing. Now once you get to level 40, it took some time to get legendaries. Now they have
a large element of randomness.
Yeah, now they have this system called Arms Day. So every Wednesday is Arms Day. And the gunsmith will have weapons that you can do to test weapons for him and gain faction with the gunsmith. And you only have to have rank 1, which is like a week of weapons testing. And then you can make orders for packages. And there are 5 weapons a week that he is selling, but you don't know what they are first. And if you get to rank 3, you get a choice of 3 different rolls on the same legendary weapon. And the only negative is after a point, they start at level 280, which is kind of the new baseline of where the grindy part of the game begins. Because I'm not to 300 yet, and I've been trying to get to 300 for a very, very long time. And it's difficult to do if you don't raid. But what's cool about it is these weapons are interesting, and they're just legendary. They're not exotic. Like, legendaries are cool, and they feel vastly different. Like, I have a dozen different auto rifles, and they all feel different, whereas the weapons I used leveling all felt exactly the same. Like every green and blue weapon I ever had felt like every other green and blue weapon I ever had.
That was my experience, 100% my experience with Destiny, and I even had legendaries in the original, and I was just like, all of these guns, like, these guns feel very good, but there's 3 of them, and that's it.
Yeah, like, now they've differentiated, and there's a lot of different feeling scout rifles. There's a lot of different feeling hand cannons. There's certain families that are similar, but they'll like be 3 or 4 variants on that same one in that little family. And then there's completely different feeling families of weapons. And they're mostly based on the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Because they built in this lore of like Amalon and Hake, and they have similar feeling weapons in the entire suite. So it's kind of like the whole Borderlands thing, where if there's a manufacturer that you like, chances are you're going to like their kind of weapon in like a semi-automatic rifle or a sniper rifle from them. You're going to like it, okay, because you kind of like the way that manufacturer feels. And
I thought that was really cool in Borderlands.
Well, they have that in Destiny. So Hake and Amalon and Tex Mechanica and Suros are weapon foundries. And you can pick up, like, there'll be some vastly different feeling weapons in that same foundry, but they share some of the same traits. So if you decide, I like Suros weapons, well, you can rock a Suros weapon of every kind. Yeah. So they've done a lot to flesh out the game. And that's mostly why, like, this was my number 1 pick. Because it's the thing I was shocked the most about. I did not expect Destiny to get any better.
I miss Dinklebot, though.
Oh, I don't. He chewed up scenery.
Can't replaced by Nolan North. I can't see how that could be a downgrade.
No, it's absolutely a positive grade because, like, there's actually emotion in the delivery of the lines. I liked the name Dinklebot, and I like Peter Dinklage as an actor, but he absolutely phoned in that performance.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing about his performance. I liked him better than Nolan North.
He wasn't given much to work with.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Is like you say that, but they went back through and re-recorded every bit of his dialogue with Nolan North, and because of it, it feels more emotive. Like, I have more of a connection with my, little light than I did previously. Because the delivery just feels more realistic, less robotic.
But it's a robot.
Yeah?
It should be robotic.
I'm a robot too in that game, because I'm an exo. That's the only race I like in that game.
That's what I had too.
Like the space elves?
No. Screw the space elves, and the humans are wrong because they don't have beards. So I have to be a robot.
I think I actually played primarily as space elf, which was weird for me.
The space elves actually have really cool lore, but it's not obvious in the game.
I was gonna say, how do you know?
So this is the other thing that I've obsessed about with this game is there's a lot of really cool story, but you have to dig to find it. It's told through all these little cards that you pick up that are on the website, which is a horrible decision. Like, why did they make us go to the website to read the cards?
I think that means in practice I don't read this. I don't get the story.
Yeah. So what is decent is there are people in the community that are super dedicated to the lore, and they have made an awesome series of videos digging up the pieces of this disconnected information and weaving it into a cohesive story. So without the community, it would be difficult.
That's great and all, but that is the community fixing a design failure.
Oh, absolutely. Like, the story of Taken King is actually a decent story, but everything prior to that story is nonsense, and they should be ashamed that they released a game that was such a skeletal shell. Anyway, so the next one I threw last minute on the list, mostly because I think it's an interesting discussion. A big thing for me this season, or this year, has been the discovery of Diablo 3 seasonal play.
And to be fair, the first Diablo season, I think, started at the end or the middle of 2014. So most of the seasonal play has happened in the last year.
But I think what makes seasonal play so interesting to me is that it kind of gives you the experience of an MMO launch without it really being an MMO launch. There's this rush of people coming back to the game to do the seasonal content and get the achievements, and all of a sudden there's lots of people happy to be playing Diablo 3, and then it's totally okay if in a few months everybody fades away, because the next season will happen before long, and right now they're scheduled to happen every 3 months. And it gives you this, like, for me, the most exciting thing about an MMO is when it launches, everyone is happy to play it, and there's plenty of people to do stuff with. And then within a few months' time, the new wears off, people fade away, and it's just like you're left with the remnant of this really exciting event that happened. And the seasonal play has figured out a way to create a perpetual cycle of this. Everyone's excited to play, and there's no hard feelings when you walk away, because that's part of the thing. Like, this is a fleeting thing that you're doing.
Also, nicely, unlike almost every MMO launch, we had about 5 minutes of downtime due to everyone trying to log in at once, and then no other server issues or anything else at the start of the season. So that was a pretty big bonus.
Have they added controller support to the PC version?
No, and they said they're not going to.
Because we were talking about this before the podcast. I'm a little bit bitter about the seasons because I played on the console mostly, and they don't have seasons there, which I can understand is probably there's a reason for it. I'm going to be bitter.
Well, so we're actually finding out the reason while playing Warframe, because if you listen to the way they talk about their console clients and their PC clients, is in the PC client they have absolute control over when they actually patch the game. And like just this week, there's been like 3 minor patches that I downloaded in the background before it launched. Whereas with the console client, they have to go through this whole release process where the console manufacturer signs off on the build and then puts it on the store. And it's a much more drawn out process. And I think,
well, and every single one of those steps costs money.
So I think that for the most part, Blizzard just doesn't want to deal with the hassle of not having control over the patch cycle.
Oh yeah, I totally understand they have reasons for it.
It's a little rude though that one of the things that changed with this season, or the patch that went along with this season, is that the PC version got a lot of little sort of flavor updates that previously had only been on the console versions. So some of the things like the new displays for kill streaks and smashing items and stuff, I think were previously implemented on the console version and got incorporated into the update on the PC this patch.
And they are so satisfying, I gotta say. Like, getting a kill streak, or even just like smashing objects when you see the little thing pop up and telling you what you just did.
I will say that, like, I hadn't played up until last month. I hadn't played Diablo 3 in probably 7 months. So I mean, I'm trying. I re-updated my console client just so I had the latest patch, but I'm not sure when I'm going to start playing it again, because they did get the new areas on the console.
Well, I got in on Season 3 at the tail end and did not actually get the objectives done in time. But then Grace and I played a lot on Season 4, and this time around, like, I was logging in at, 7 o'clock CST when the servers came up, and I was creating my character instantly. Like, I was so amped about this season.
I thought that was so great, and I mean, I'm the person that Diablo 3 is one of my sort of evergreen games. Like, I'll keep going back to it occasionally, even when it's not the beginning of a new season, and I keep poking at it from time to time, and so it made me so happy to see everyone start getting really psyched about it and about coming back, and to suddenly, I mean, this is the first time that at the start of the season I had a full group of friends to hang out with and level almost the entire way up to 70 on the first night. I mean, by the end of the night there were just 2 of us left, but still, that made it, I think, a lot more fun for me.
Diablo 3 certainly is for me. Like, Bell mentioned for Destiny, that is the game that you can go back to and just play an hour or 2 hours. Diablo 3 is one of those games for me, just because I can drop in, I can do a couple of rifts and be done and not have to worry about anything else. And I do have it on the PC, so maybe I can get on the PC version and play with you guys sometime.
I am sure we can totally help you get leveled up. Honestly, like, to some extent, seasonal play feels like going to summer camp. In a good way, like, not the horrible, dreading summer camp feeling that sometimes happens, but it's a good thing. Like, we're going to Diablo camp.
I can say I never went to summer camp, so the only knowledge I ever have of summer camp is Friday the 13th.
No. Well, I guess in a way it is like Friday the 13th, except for you're Jason and the Diablo monsters are the... Yeah, never mind.
I think your analogy broke down.
Yeah, it fell apart. Okay, so this one's going to be awesome because it doesn't exactly follow the pattern of everything else we've talked about, but it is also related because we've talked about it a lot on the show. Tam, Infinity, and their rule set update this year.
Oh, man. Yeah, so... Infinity, it's the miniatures game. And they, as miniatures games have moved, they have editions that release every, usually few years. Infinity is no different. And they just released, it was very, very late February, but it was really January before all of the rules were available. And they did one of the most thorough jobs of going through and updating the rules and making them sensible and closing loopholes and just evaluating the entire game. And I'm so used to rules updates being either something that a miniatures company does as an extreme last resort, like this is just absolutely required and we don't have any other recourse than to reboot this whole thing, which was kind of the approach that War Machine took, which was like, well, we've got to move on to this edition, but we don't want to. So we're going to do this once. And like on the other extreme, you have a game like 40K, which updates its rules like every other weekend.
As a way of mostly of selling more books.
Yeah, as a way of selling more books, and in a lot of ways, like people have armies that they measure the age of in how many editions of the rules it has been since their army got an update. And like some of these aren't small numbers. Discontinued. We're not talking about discontinued forces. We're talking about like, I'm working with a 9-year-old book and an FAQ so that it catches up to the last 3 editions of this game, so that I can play these particular minis that I like.
My favorite unit type was Adeptus Arbites, the Judge Dredd guys, and they have been only ever unofficially Black Library supported since they first came out.
Yeah, and you know, their rules back then have no bearing on the game as it is right now. It's just, you've got these cool things, but you can't use them. And so there was a lot of, you know, as you might expect, wailing and gnashing of teeth with Infinity doing, you know, a rules update. But one of the things that I really liked that they did was they went through and they found all of the places where their rules were confusing, or many of the places where their rules were confusing or uncertain. And they looked at, I want to say literally every single unit in the entire game across all 7 factions and 21 sectorials, and said like, okay, is this good? Is this something that somebody wants to play? Is this mini fun? And at this point, with this edition, I can honestly tell somebody, pick the minis that you want to play, and you can make it work. You know, whatever you think looks cool, whatever appeals to you, you can play this game with those.
Unless you happen to think that Geskuda looks cool.
Yeah, I mean, they discontinued. Well, that was what I was going to go into. Is they are also a company that is willing to admit its mistakes, and I think that's really interesting because most game companies don't. They do everything in their power to avoid admitting when they made an error, especially if that means like that any of their players would feel disenfranchised. They had a particular unit that was big stompy robot who could drop in from the sky and had its rules associated with that. And it was this really cool idea, but it kind of painted them into a corner because it meant that the faction there was a variety of things that this unit would break just utterly. And so there were things that the faction just as a whole couldn't have, including this entire sub mechanic of the game. There's this ability that allows your, you know, hackers to help guide the GPS systems of your drop troops. So your hackers on the ground can help your, you know, parachutists and jump pack guys to land more accurately. And it's this really cool blend of these two different, otherwise very different detached units. The problem was that if this big stompy robot had good enough stats that if it had that help, it would land perfectly every single time with no error. And so the whole faction that it was a part of couldn't have the ability to drop its air troops more accurately because of this one unit. And there were a couple of other things in the faction that just weren't functional. And they were like, look, these aren't working. We're removing them from the game because their rules do not work for the rest of the game. And it's hurting the faction that they're a part of because it limits what we're allowed to do with them without it being broken. And, you know, yeah, a bunch of people were like, well, I'm really annoyed that these miniatures I purchased are no longer viable. But like for the health of the game, it's been good because it means that a bunch of things can now happen that weren't allowed to happen before, and there's more parity. And so I've been playing this game for all year now, and the improvements are really significant. It's a lot easier to get into for a new player than it used to be, but at the same time, its tactical depth is much deeper without being gimmicky. It still has moments where you'll run into something that you haven't seen before and it'll just stomp you because you didn't know how it worked. But it doesn't have weird, super finicky rules interactions, or as many anymore, that'll just completely blindside even an experienced player. You don't have to memorize every unit in the game to be competitive the way you do elsewhere. And Whereas that used to be true. It's nice that it isn't anymore. And they've even gone a step further, and they kind of saw how the game played out over the course of this year and said, our edition update didn't go far enough. We didn't have this wasn't planned before, but we're going to release another series of updates, like a patch basically, to bring stuff that we didn't quite hit right the first time up to speed. And it's really great to see that kind of openness and communication. I'm really excited about the new system, because they released a game that I am having a ton of fun with. It managed to be an incredibly balanced game, which is important when you're spending, as much money as you are on miniatures, that the ones that you bought weren't a waste. I feel like they respect the dollar that I'm spending on their miniatures without trying to force me to buy all the new fancy stuff just because it's new and fancy.
Well, and the other thing, I've kind of been loosely following this as you've talked about it on the podcast, and one of the things that impresses me about the Infinity line is the fact that they really do release new and shiny stuff. It's resculpts, it's on a fairly regular basis, whereas you take, Games Workshop, they are still re-releasing, in quotes, miniatures that were sculpted back in the late 80s as though they were new units. Whereas if Infinity really releases new stuff, it's new stuff. It's a resculpt of a thing that you recognize from before.
Well, and one of the things that I think is really neat is they've moved to digital sculpting, because they can do a lot more interesting, more detailed, more efficient stuff with digital sculpting. One of their hand sculpting artists was like, okay, I will learn digital sculpting. And he's become very good at it. And when they release a new unit for with the digital sculpts, they've often paired it with, here, if you want to update your old units so that they can look like the new stuff we're bringing out, here's a brand new sculpt of the stuff. That's really cool. And a lot of the other stuff that they're resculpting is stuff that they made years ago and are embarrassed by. They had a whole bunch of, for example, they were one of the only minis games to regularly release female sculpts of almost every unit. But some of their early ones were really, really cheesecakey and pin-up-y. And they've been phasing those out because they're like, that's not the image that we want to portray of this game. And sure, when we made this mini 10 years ago or 12 years ago, it wasn't, nobody thought twice about it, but it's 2015. No, that's not okay. We're going to release this. We're going to re-release this unit, and it's going to look better, and it's going to look like it belongs. It's not going to be a bunch of dudes in power armor and this girl in a mini skirt. It's no. This is somebody wearing power armor that fits with these other guys wearing power armor, and it's going to be sculpted realistically, or at least proportionally. And it's nice to see them kind of about face on that mentality, because it's very much a audience driven thing. I like that they've moved to whenever you buy a box set, it comes with 4 minis, and in almost every case it's 2 male and 2 female sculpts, and it's mostly distributed randomly. And they do, I don't know, they do really interesting stuff, and they update their look, and they update their style, and it's nice to see that they put the same thought and care into their rules. I'm really excited about the new stuff coming out. The new rules are going to have a bunch of neat things, and it also it's a super characterful game without being a caricature. 40K is super characterful, but it's all the joke is that it's playing a heavy metal album cover, whereas Infinity, I don't think it'll ever happen because it's a small Spanish company, but I would love to see an Infinity video game because the world that they've set up is really, really interesting.
So I've started playing this game a little bit because I live close to Tam, and I am not a huge fan of minis games, like for a number of reasons. But I'm thus far liking Infinity, and the new rules especially are less finicky than I remember other mini games I've tried playing in the past. So seems like Infinity's going on the right track.
Okay, folks, we are to the batch of games that were picked by multiple people, and so the first one let's talk about is Fallout 4, which I know is going to be weird since we just did a show devoted entirely to Fallout 4 not long ago, but
Being one of the people who put Fallout 4 on their list, I will say is pretty much for the same reason I had Witcher 3, in that I really love the open world RPG games now.
so I put it on the list as well, and for me it's mostly because like Fallout 4 delivered on all the things that I wished the Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas would have, in that I just felt like everything was at a higher fidelity. Like all of the things I liked about those games just worked better in Fallout 4. And the real thing that was the hook for me was the fact that sure I was wandering around aimlessly and killing lots of bandits, but at the same time I felt like I was making the world a better place by constantly renovating chunks of the world that yeah sure it still looks like shit, but it looks like a better version of shit, and the settlers at least seem somewhat happy to be there and protected in not out in the horrible of horribles.
I still think that the next time I play through it, I'm not going to save any of the settlers.
Really? I couldn't do that.
Well, alright, remember what I did my first playthrough of
Yeah.
100%, so I could care less the second time.
Yeah, like even though I've done it, I don't think I could not save the settlers. Like it's just ingrained in me.
If they gave me an option to carry around a gas tank and torch the settlers' buildings, I probably would.
Oh man, no, I could do that.
Well, we have previously established I am dead inside, so.
Fallout 4 for me delivered on what I always want futuristic post-apoc games to deliver on that I never get to, which is not just I can leave the world a better place than I found it, but I can make it a place that I would actually not mind being. It happens like I don't want to live in New Vegas or the Capital Wasteland, but by the end of Fallout 4 story, I felt like it would eventually become a place that I would want to live. Like it would be a better place than it was before the bombs.
I feel like we were doing the same thing. We were just taking two different paths.
Yeah, and I think that's really neat. Like I like that we have that option.
I enjoyed all the rabbit holes that you can go down just getting super sidetracked for weeks on end. Because like the actual main story is I think pretty short, but man, I spent a lot of time not doing the main story.
Yeah, I mean, like I would have been perfectly happy if the main story didn't exist. In fact, some ways I would be happier if the main story didn't purposely pigeonhole you down a very specific path.
Yeah, and for me, the main story is what made me like the game.
Yeah, but though, okay, so you say that, but you got to admit there's probably a part of you that would have enjoyed it better if you could have somehow created a grand bargain that brought together the various forces.
Maybe? I don't know.
Because like I'm just not a very factional person in general. Like I play Alliance in WoW only because most of my characters are Alliance side, and 90% of the people I know who play WoW are playing Alliance. But I don't have any real attachment to go Alliance or go Horde or go Defiant or. So I'm just not a factional person, and the fact that this game forced me to ultimately pick a faction felt very artificial. And that would be the one thing I would change. Is like I don't like the fact that I had to choose.
See, I just didn't like the factions, and went with the option that allowed me to create my own.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like the way that you had to choose and the options that were available are part of why. I mean, I enjoyed the game and I played a lot of it, but overall, I mean, it wasn't one of my picks for the year, and not knowing that, well, there's one faction that you could choose that lets you kind of carve your own path, and having no way of knowing that playing through it is sort of, I don't know. But then again, I am the person who murdered my son on my main playthrough and felt no regret. So
I would probably, if there was an option to find peace between all the factions, I probably would have done that just because I like doing as many missions as possible.
Well, my whole problem with the having to betray the factions is by the time you have to betray two of the factions, you have sworn yourself to all three factions.
Yes.
It's you can't just, yeah, I never really did much for them and I don't like them, so yeah, I'll take them out. No. Each of these factions has taken you in, like the railroad in particular. The idea of betraying the railroad feels really, really awful to me because they took me in, they, brought me in on the secrets, they trusted me, and if I want to side with anybody other than them, I have to repay that by murdering them all.
Exactly.
It makes me feel really awful. That said, Fallout 4 was on my list of 3 initially and was ultimately replaced, but it was definitely a contender.
I loved playing Fallout 4 so much when I wasn't paying attention to the main story.
I mean,
but
did I say Fallout 3?
I guess here's the thing: is like I feel that's a completely valid style of play, though. Like
I do too.
It's okay to ignore story. Like if you just want mechanics and to build your own story in your head, because that's the thing that usually drives me in these games. Is like I am building a narrative for myself that is not the main story, and I am happier with it than I am the main story.
I'm gonna have to interrupt you there.
Okay.
It's not to say that I didn't play Fallout 4 for the story, just not the main story. There's so much story packed into Fallout 4, not in the main story. And that was what I loved. All of the little side quests, like all of the companion quests, all of the companions. Yeah, there's a lot of story going on outside of what happens in the main story, which I wasn't a huge fan of.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I absolutely love the side story in the Fallout universe, and I loved the side story in the other games, especially New Vegas. I liked finding out what was going on in like Little Lamplight or any of the other areas that had really interesting story wrapped around them. It's just the main story in Fallout games that I'd never really care about, and I truthfully that's this case with Bethesda games in general. Like, I don't really care about the main story in Skyrim, but I love Skyrim. I love going around and doing things in Skyrim, but I don't really care so much about the story.
And I find that that's true of me as well, and I liked having one of those games where I did care about the story, because I normally don't. And I want to care about story because I like story. It's one of my main motivators in games.
Okay, so another game with multiple picks, Ori and the Blind Forest.
Probably the prettiest 2D game I've played ever.
It is.
I really need to play this game.
It is super, super pretty. Also, so I'm playing a lot of Warframe now, and I can praise how good the movement in Warframe is. It's still not as good as the movement in Ori and the Blind Forest to me. Ori and the Blind Forest is a Metroidvania where like every single upgrade you're getting is impacting the way you move. And by the end of the game, you are just flying in this incredibly intricate way that is so satisfying as you're pulling it off.
Another thing that's notable about that game is that it does not have boss fights.
No, it has like boss runs where you are trying to execute a series of maneuvers to get to the end of this point, and it's very, very difficult, but that is the boss. It's all about how good are you at moving through this world. And boy, is the Ginsu tree?
Ginso tree? Something like that.
Tree? Boy, that's a wake-up call.
It's the first of these sequences. And yes, it's quite difficult and much harder than everything that you do before in the game up to that point.
but boy is it satisfying once you complete it. So one of the power that you get right before that is fling. Any enemy or enemy projectile or any background object, if you get close to it, you can fling it away, and basically you fling it one direction and you fly in the other direction. And you have to use this power to climb up this really treacherous tower as water is rushing up under your feet.
My biggest takeaway from the bit I played of the game is it has like one of the most soul-crushing intros ever.
It has a
Definitely
really
does have
soul-crushing...
that.
Yeah, that's actually kind of one of the things that I thought was weird, is the story. It's got a very soul-crushing intro, but it kind of undoes a lot of that by the end of it.
I was somewhat happy about this. Because
I don't know, I love my games to be 11 sads out of 10.
It's true.
I'm okay with them taking back some of the stats. But yeah, the intro really does lay it on.
Yeah, it's like I teared up during the intro to that game.
But no, game is very good. It's gorgeous. It's got a great soundtrack. Not my favorite soundtrack of the year, but it's got a good one.
Okay, we have reached the point where we have the last item on the list, and it is with mixed feelings that I mention it now. Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward. I don't know who all picked this one.
Several people.
Yeah, there were like multiple people on the list that picked it.
Yep.
The expansion content was amazing.
Yeah.
I think the expansion was amazing.
Yeah, no.
I
It
picked
very
it.
nearly
I thought,
made my list.
yeah, it's excellent story. It's really well done. New zones, cool dungeons. I mean, yes, I think we're all kind of in a lull with it now, but I certainly feel like it gave me, my money's worth of fun, and I fully intend to come back to it here, in a bit.
Yeah, that's kind of the same area I am in. Like, for me, it's a tale of two different experiences where the leveling content and the story of Heavensward was phenomenal. Just once I hit the top, I didn't have much left that I really wanted to be doing.
For me, it's because kind of agree with you there, but it's because when we came back to Final Fantasy XIV the first time, the endgame content was never where we were.
Exactly.
We were always behind. I think we were
we-
happier behind.
And that was why we left originally, because when we looked at what it took to do anything endgame, it was like, no, I don't want to do that. And it sort of doesn't surprise me that we hit a lull, because that's exactly what happened before.
Yeah, it mirrors the experience of the relaunch of A Realm Reborn. So
I loved this expansion, and I don't know, even when I got to the end game initially, like, I felt like for me I had plenty to do, and I ended up leaving before I had accomplished all the things that I wanted to, but there just hasn't been a very large amount added since then. And so I think, like, I agree that, like, this almost made my list. It was an amazing expansion. It had a great story, and it was beautiful, and I had a great time playing it. So, it was like A+, it was well worth it. It ended up sort of creating a promise of more of that as an MMO, where you expect, content updates. And because A Realm Reborn had such great, consistent, content, and it didn't quite follow through on that promise.
For me, like, of all of the games that we've talked about on our games of the year, that I actually can say that I completed, like, that I got to the end to and got to see everything the game had to offer, Final Fantasy is the one that I'm gonna come back to. It's not even I'm probably going to when I see what's coming. It's the moment they drop new content, I'm gonna be back in there.
yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I'm still subbed. Every time there's a new holiday event, every time there's a new story patch, anything like that, I'm back in it and I hungrily gobble it up. I'm just not finding the day-to-day reason to be playing the game that I used to have. And I think it's exactly what Ash said. We were so far behind that there was this mountain to climb, and little bit by little bit, baby step by baby step, we climbed our way to the top, and we're caught up again. And now we have to wait for a bunch of content to stack up again for us to return and work our way through.
And I think that for me, like, I'm okay playing other games until I can have an experience like we did when we came back to A Realm Reborn. Because there are a lot of MMO experiences that I look back on fondly, but getting back into the game and seeing how much had gotten better and how awesome it was and how much there was to do, that was fantastic. And I'm gonna get to have that experience again when they release more content.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to that. And I think I also, the reason that it makes my list, and I don't remember if it actually made my list or if I didn't say it because it was already on the list. But the reason it makes my list is because not the biggest fault I can find with it is that I'm not playing it this second.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, there's a lot of games. I like to play a lot of games. I don't like to feel beholden to playing one game because it'll burn me out. And Final Fantasy gives me a perfect excuse to say, okay, I'm going to take a break and I'll come back. I will be back. It's not a question of, like I said, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I feel pretty good about that. In the meantime, I feel free enjoying other stuff and not feeling like I have to log into this game every single day.
And I guess, like, to some extent I have these mixed feelings about it, but they're not really warranted. Because, like, if I think of other games, you can name almost any other MMO, and I have serious problems with one or two aspects of that game. Like, it doesn't matter with the game. And really, I don't have serious issues. It's just I lack the oomph to keep playing it right now after playing it for a year and a half. And that's not its fault. That's my fault.
Well, it's also a little bit its fault because their endgame design is a little lacking.
Well, so I think they're fixing that, though. Like, I really think they realized that they kind of screwed up on that. Because, as hard as Binding Coil of Bahamut was, it wasn't soul-crushingly hard. Like, it was hard for us.
When it was current content, it absolutely was.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it was in the way that Savage Alexander is right now.
You're right. It was worse.
Really?
Yes.
Yes and no.
If you talk to the really serious, like, cutting edge of content raiders, like, they're like, oh man, Alexander is so much more humane.
You imagine trying to figure out meteors the first time.
Yeah, I don't know. That would have been madness.
Yeah, honestly, the story of Alexander isn't very interesting to me. Like, that's kind of, did I love the final fight of the main story in Heaven's Ward. That's probably one of the best bosses I've done in a long time. But nothing in Alexander really sold me. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the Goblin storyline. I think they're funny, but I don't think there's something I want to base a big epic raid on.
Oh, the big thing for me with Alexander was I loved the music, and that was it.
Oh, I was not, I thought it was funny, but I didn't really love it.
I really enjoyed some of the fights in Alexander, and there were cute moments, but it doesn't do a lot for me story-wise, like, Coil. So I'm hoping that, I don't know, I'm interested to see where they end up going with it, and maybe they'll surprise me and something really cool happen later on.
I actually never got around to the expansion content. I bought the expansion, but I was so far behind on story, I never got caught up.
Honestly, the Heavensward story is some of the best story I've ever seen told in an online game.
Well, I absolutely remember, like, Final Fantasy XIV being one of the best looking games MMOs I ever played. I got to the point in the story where you have to start doing the dungeons, and I don't like being required to do things like that. Like, I couldn't progress any further into the story unless I was doing the dungeons and didn't feel like doing them.
They will force you to do their dungeons. I can definitely understand how that would be a deal breaker.
I mean, I remember sort of hearing about the game initially before the expansion, before I started playing it, and really sort of resenting, like, how dare they force people to go through their dungeons to progress in the story. Who does something like that? Jeez. But it grew on me, and the way that they incentivize people to continue to run that content and to not be assholes to new people actually made the process enjoyable and made me happy to run it and happy to continue running those dungeons, even as I had leveled up. So I am a convert for that particular game.
Yeah, I
the first dungeon
wish
was good.
I wish every MMO had the kind of community that Final Fantasy XIV tends to have.
I having done research because I think the other MMO that had a similar community for me was EverQuest.
Yeah, original EverQuest,
original.
not EQ2, but
I will say I didn't mind the dungeon thing. Like when the game first came out and we were all playing at the same time, I didn't mind it because I was doing it with everybody at the same time. It was just so I was so far behind that I don't know. I'm one of those people I feel guilty about making people come and help me because I'm not going to pug. I'm not going to random group. So it's kind of like it was kind of putting it off for me because I like the enjoyment of doing it the first time. Like everybody doing it the first time together. Where I came in so late, everybody else had already done it. But that's how I play games.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, there were at least 2 Heavensward dungeons where I like futzed around for a week because I wanted to play them with like Kodra or Ash, and I was just like, nope, I'm gonna sit around and wait until I can run this with people. I'm not gonna plug it early. I'm gonna play it with the people I want to play it with. And I don't think I never do that thing. And Heavensward got me doing it. I mean, Final Fantasy is the only game that's gotten me doing it.
And meanwhile, for me, Final Fantasy is sort of the last MMO where I felt totally happy plugging everything, even when I hadn't done it before, just because the community that's there and the sort of the incentivization of rerunning things and not being mean to new people made me feel comfortable doing that.
Well, I absolutely love my collector's edition of it because I love having this dragon statue behind my desk.
Well, folks, we just recorded a Games of the Year show.
Woohoo!
Any
Probably
final
a pair.
thoughts? Yeah, a pair of them. Any final thoughts before we get out of here? Anything that we left off the list that folks are just dying to talk about that might have gotten jogged loose?
There was 2 games I left off because Assassin's Creed I was kind of torn on putting in there, but Super Mario Maker is an excellent game. And I really liked Batman Arkham Knight, but I left it off because I wanted Assassin's Creed on.
Okay.
I definitely at least want to put an honorable mention for Wild Stars Reloaded, just because that was a pretty huge event and changed a bit about the game, and it's got a lot of people to come back and check it out and made it a lot more fun for me to keep playing. I didn't put it on the list because it wasn't a new game or anything this year, but I mean, I obviously probably spent more time playing that than anything else in this year, so it definitely bears at least a mention.
I feel similarly about Marvel Heroes. I didn't put it on my list because, it's not a new game, and they didn't make any major super changes for this year, although they did, relaunch it name-wise because their old reviews were awful, and now they're much better. But it is a fabulous, fabulous Diablo-style game with superheroes that continues to get updated regularly. They're always adding new heroes, and it's super awesome. And I don't even want to think about how many hours I've logged in it at this point.
For me, I think an honorable mention to Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I
their
did
new
enjoy
story
jumping
content.
back into that for a while.
And that was fun for a while.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I'd say for not really new games, Grim Fandango Remastered, I just finished it on the console, but I mean, it's an old game. They just redid the graphics a little bit.
Hooray for Grim Fandango. Still one of the
Yeah.
best adventure games ever made.
It's so true.
I also 100%ed it, but, I'm just crazy.
Honorable mention for me, I have 2 of them. Life is Strange, because it's really, really interesting. And I haven't finished it because I'm waiting for the whole for everything to get released. Although I think it might be now,
I think it was.
so I'll have to come back to it. But the taste that I got was really interesting, and I want to see more games telling stories in that way and doing interesting stuff with it. I really hope that the upcoming Quantic Dream game is going to be like that. And StarCraft 2, Something of the Void.
Legacy
of the Void. I really loved the Terran campaign in StarCraft 2. I thought it was fun. I thought it told an interesting story. I thought that the Zerg campaign was underwhelming. And the Protoss campaign was really cool. I had a ton of fun with it. I really love how they take their campaign and go in a different direction than just running regular StarCraft missions. Like, there's a whole RPG progression side to it where you can customize units to do different, like sometimes vastly different things than they normally do. And it was really fun to sort of come back to that and be like, oh yeah, I still can micro a little bit, and this is a neat story. And I'm playing with like StarCraft hero units.
Well, okay. Well, hopefully we still have some people listening at this point. But given that it's going to get chopped into 2 episodes to cover the fact that a handful of us are going to be at PAX South, hopefully it becomes 2 decent-sized shows. I guess when we
listen to this part, that's where we'll actually be.
Yeah, we will be at PAX South, and unfortunately, I'm not going to edit it so that it's at the beginning, but
Feel free to try and track us down. Say hi.
yeah.
I'll be like amazed and shocked if people actually do. Because I'm with Bell, I still feel like, I don't feel like people are actually listening to me say things.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling.
People out there, it's weird.
When I was a little kid, I used to make like magazines and things like that no one would ever read. And I know we have a listener base and they communicate back with us. But like when I blog or when I podcast, for the most part, I'm still back in that mode of a little kid making things that I don't expect anybody to actually read or listen to. But anyway, so when we do get back to our normal shows, I guess we will be recording the Aquarius show. Because, it will actually be a month up at that point. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed reminiscing through the games we enjoyed this year. And we'll do another one next year, hopefully. See y'all later. Good night.
Hi.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.